Hey everyone, how you doing? Chad Martin, founder of Data Prep U here. We are in our live build of our current Alteryx weekly challenge. Now, this week's challenge is number 293. As a reminder, I've had no prior build through. I have had no prior knowledge of what this challenge was, except for just reading through the description just about 2 minutes ago. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, once again, the purpose of these live builds is just so you can see my thought process, so you can actually see how we approach a problem, because ultimately at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is solve a problem. And so how do we actually approach any given data problem and start from the beginning and baby step our way through to the end here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to shrink my video down as always and read through. So I'll read through this challenge. Challenge 293. Today is Monday, November 8th, 2011. This one is called Top 5 Artists. And this states that the Billboard magazine is a weekly American music and entertainment magazine that provides music charts. The Hot 100 lists the 100 most popular songs of the week in the U.S. This data set contains information about the top 100 most popular songs between 2015 and 2021. Find out the top 5 artists and songs who stayed on the chart the longest weekly for each 2017, 18, 19, and 20. Then create a table in the format of your choice to display your results. Hint, the column weeks on chart shows how many weeks the song was on the charts since its launch. So we do have a few hints here. Now, there's a couple things that I'm noticing right out of the gate is that it's asking for weeks 2017 through 2020, even though the data is 2015 through 21. So immediately that tells me I can reduce the data I'm working with. I can filter out certain data without even looking at this. Without even seeing this, I can filter out some of this data in order to make my workflow more efficient. So let's go ahead and download our start file here. Let's try this one more time. For some reason, it's deciding not to download for me. This is going into the live build. Let's try a little refresh here and see if that actually helps out. There we go. All right. A little refresh actually helps out. Of course, I get a little nervous anytime something doesn't work on a live show. As a reminder, also, we are watching the chat. So as you come in, you are welcome to come in and chat. I will try to answer those chats as well. Okay. So we got a couple of different things here. Here's our description once again. This is actually coming from a Kaggle data source as well. So if you're not familiar, Kaggle is a fantastic way of just challenging yourself with all kinds of different data challenges, as well as using Alteryx for some of these. It's not an Alteryx thing at all by any means. You can use any platform you want. In fact, there are multiple teams of people that will actually go through to try to solve problems. Okay, so here we go. Once again, for those of you who have actually followed along in the past, you know that I will immediately go down and run my workflow so I can see that we've got 35,400 records on our input. The output is one report. Now, this did specifically state, create a report in your way, in your method. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do that, just thinking off the top of my head. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go into a lot of detail into the reporting tools at this time, just because that's a very lengthy conversation in how you can customize different things. But what I do want to do is show you a couple of different ways to actually be able to color code different things. Now, that said, as I had mentioned, we're going through 2017 through 2020, if I remember our description correctly. Yep, 2017 through 2020. So looking at our input, I can see some dates here, the artist, the song last week, the total number of weeks on chart, and then the peak rank, so just the highest rank that they actually got to. So our date here, this is an ISO date format. I'm going to go ahead and check my metadata real quick. I'm also going to highlight my mouse, which I tend to forget to do. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. All right, making it easier to see. So what I'm seeing is that the date field is set up as a string field. This is currently not set up as a date, which is kind of interesting, but even looking at the overall date itself, I should probably be able to actually filter, or excuse me, not filter, but parse this pretty easily. So I'm going to first start, and I'm going to take a little bit of a quicker route. I'm not going to first create a separate field. I'm just going to say, within a custom filter, I'm going to say left, and then I'm going to actually say date, because we have the date field for, okay? And then I'm going to use a function here because we can say 2017 through 2020. So I want to say is then in. So using an in statement. I'm curious to hear how many of you knew that you could actually perform in statements within Alteryx. The way that you perform an in statement is then I can actually just say 2017, comma, 2018, comma, 2019, comma, and quote 2020. So an in statement acts as an or statement for those of you who don't know. So what I'm essentially saying is the left 4 characters, in this case the actual year, are either 2017, 18, 19, or 20. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcuts Control R to run the workflow just to do a double check. So here's some 2020 values, 2018, 2019, and 2020. I did not see any 2017 in here, which is interesting, but that could very well be because I'm only displaying 11,000 of 20,000 records. If I were to throw in a full browse tool, probably going to see all of that. I'm going to see everything in here. So here I have, let's do another thing here. I'm going to actually convert this over to an actual date format. So let's go ahead and take that date, and we're going to convert this over to a date, an ISO date, so 4-digit year, dash 2-digit month, dash 2-digit day, because that allows me to sort things in here. And I want to do a quick check. I want to sort by the date real quick, ascending. I want to double check and make sure that we've got some other dates in here, like 2017 dates. So here we go, 1-7, okay, great. 14, so these are showing that these are, and then 21, excellent, 28, and then 2-4. Okay, so what I'm checking for is to make sure that these are just the week ends, essentially. So it's the end of the week itself. So in doing that, we need to actually then go through and say which are the top 5 artists and songs who stayed on the chart the longest. Now, our output, if you remember, I actually showed you a little trick a couple of weeks ago where we can actually pop this out into a brand new window. And the reason why I'm doing that is because popping this out into a brand new window allows me to essentially view my results. I can actually take a look here, and all I really need to see are just like the first 2 or so. I'm not really sure what's going on over here. That could be something to do with like the number of weeks or so forth. But we have the top artists and the top songs. Now I'm curious in here, so we have, do we have any? Yeah, so here we go, Post Malone and Sway Lee. So what's going on here? Oh no, I'm sorry, this is not a doubled up thing, that's one single song. So what I was checking to see, because it says top artists and top songs, I think what they really mean is top songs in here. So what I'm gonna go through is then start looking at, essentially looking at the number of weeks that they've been on the chart at this point. So we got this weeks on chart. So instead of doing that date ascending, or excuse me, I am going to do the date ascending, but then I'm actually going to do the weeks on chart after that. And we're going to say descending on that. I'm going to do a quick little check here. So let's check 2017. So the top 5 looks like, I want to see if I'm actually on the right track here. So the Chainsmokers, which is not the case. So here we have number of weeks of 49. So somehow in here, what we're not doing is I'm not taking into account some sort of calculation, because this is saying top number of artists and songs who stayed on the charts the longest weekly for each year. So stayed on the charts weekly for each year. Once again, so I got to try to figure out how we're getting Ed Sheeran in here. Let's go ahead and pin that as well. And just doing another double check. Oh, you know what? So that's for each year. I'm sorry. So we're not even actually summarizing the year. So you know what? Where I did my little filter here, that was really cute, but the reality is I actually do need to parse this out into a separate year. So why don't we do this? I'm going to add a column called year, and this is going to be our left, and then in this case, date, and then 4. And we're actually going to call this, sure, we can do a VW string. I'm just going to do a hard set string, in this case of 4, which honestly, this is still the same here, but we could just say, in this case now, year instead. And we should get the exact same result. So we had the year. I'm doing my little sorts here. What I'm not doing, though, because I did do that little filter, what I need to do now is actually a full-on summarize at the end of this, because I need to do essentially a group by on that song, and then summarize on group by on year, I'm guessing on the artist, song, and then summarize the actual weeks on chart. So let's try this. So let's try a little summarize here. Let's do a group by. I'm going to do a couple of things. Group by, what did I say? Year, artist, song, just as a start, just to see what happens. Looks like vString right here was set up as a string as well. So I'm actually going to cut this out. I'm going to move this over. I'm going to paste my little select tool over here. And the reason why is because then I can actually take that weeks on chart. Let's change that to an int 32. The last week ranking, I'm not really going to worry about that yet, although that might need to come in, that might come in handy here. So instead of date, let's do a sort on year. And then in the next case, we wanted to do, a weeks on chart sum. So on this, we want to do a weeks on chart, sum that. I'm actually going to just keep that set as weeks on chart. And so here we go. Now we're doing a sort. So here, yeah, still I'm not doing something totally right in here. So looking at 2017, the total number of weeks, something with what we've got on here, artist and song. I don't even think I see Ed Sheeran in here. But here's Ed Sheeran with the shape of you. Let's see if we can actually do a quick little search on this. Yeah, because I'm getting total weeks based on that. Oh, you know what we also need to do? Because this is giving us a summary of the weeks on chart. That's the problem here. That's not actually giving me like every week rank. So what we really need to do is we need to actually break this down. And instead of actually summing the weeks on chart, I don't think that's the right call here, because that's actually giving us a cumulative, like a rolling total. So what I want to do, honestly, is I think I just want to do a count, just a straight up count, because that's going to tell me what each of these are. I'm going to leave that rank as a week on chart, because what that's doing is then giving me the actual Ed Sheeran, Post Malone, all right, Luis Fonsi. So they kind of threw you for a loop there a little bit in that there was a value. So let me just kind of recap what I figured out here. There was a value for weeks on chart. So I thought, oh, let's summarize this. But this weeks on chart value is already in there. That's already summarized. That's not what we're looking to do. What we need to do is just count, because we already separated this out. Each one of these values for each one of the actual artist and song, that's actually not, that's going to just count as one single week on chart. So if we do a simple sum and then a count on those weeks on, or on the weeks on chart, or just count in general, and then do a quick sort, now we actually get our Ed Sheeran, Shape of You, Post Malone, Bruno Mars, Luis Fonsi, Imagine Dragons, James Arthur. Everything else seems to be correct, and we also have the correct numbers. So now it's going to be pretty simple with the sample tool here, because the sample tool allows us just to say first 5 rows, but I'm going to then do a grouping based off of that year in this case. And so now what this should give us is a total of just a handful of records in here, 20 records, ending with Jack Harlow, Dua Lipa, Harry Styles. Yep, everything's looking good so far. All right, now is whenever we actually get into the reporting portion of things. So I'm going to close out of this because, once again, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care what they have done previously, because in the note, it very specifically says create a table in the format of your choice. So that gives us pretty much free reign, free flexibility. Now I'm going to do something similar to what they did, just so you can kind of get an idea. But as a reminder, the reporting tools actually go through multiple different ways of creating a static report. Now, these were intended to be like the body of an email, or maybe you're creating a formatted Excel report that's going to be sent out as an attachment to 500 different people, but each report is unique to each one of those people. That's where the power of these reporting tools can really come in. So what I'm going to do, though, is start with just the table tool here. I'm not going to do any grouping up here necessarily at this point, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of different things. So first off, I'm going to go into my default table settings, because I can actually go into my headers. I'm going to actually bold those. I'm going to make the background color a little bit of a data prep U, blue. The text color, I'm going to just do plain white, making that kind of boring, but maybe even increasing the font a little bit. Then for each field here, I'm actually going to go in and do a little rename, simply I'm not actually doing a rename, but I'm title casing these. So year is already there. So I'm just going to say weeks on chart and then leave that as is. Now I think in our example, they actually changed the configuration. So you can change these up a little bit. So I created my default table settings in here. The next piece of things is just to review. And in order to review, we need an actual browse tool. So once again, Control R to run the workflow. Now I can actually start to see a little bit of a change. So these are sorted in order 1 through 5 per year in terms of the highest number of weeks on chart. Doing a quick little check on here. They didn't put any sort of ranking on here. Personally, I'd like to see some sort of ranking. They do have a bar chart in here. I'm not, again, completely sure what's going on here because it just says 0 to 100 and it's somewhere in the middle. So I think that what this is doing is they created a bar chart from 0 to 100, but in reality, there's only 52 weeks in the year. So that, again, this is kind of, I think this is a little bit irrelevant. I think they were just kind of adding this in for some flair. So personally, I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. But what might be valuable is like a percentage of total weeks in the top 5, something like that. Total weeks in the top 5, which would require a couple of other calculations in here. What we want to do though is just do some other color coding. Clearly this is color coded based off of the year. So what we want to do is within the table itself, we're going to create a couple of rules in here. So the first thing is under default table setting. Let's go back to our table itself because there is an alternating color in the data. So under the alternate color, there's also a little trick. You can copy and paste those colors directly in here. So I'm going to do an alternating color. However, what we are now going to do is start doing some row level rules on all of our data. So there's a create row rule in here. And what I'm going to call this one first is just 2017. And I'm going to say when, and in this case we can say year equals 2017. What we want to do is just change the background color here to something a little bit different. Let's make these a little bit lighter. How do we want to do this? So we'll just start with 2017 here and say there. Oh, I'm getting a phone call here. I'm going to go ahead and decline that for now. Apologies, everyone. All right, so here we go. Now we've got those row rules. They are starting to take shape a little bit. Once again, our output, they're using some other customized colors in here. You kind of get the idea of where we're going with this, right? So now let's go ahead and create some more rules. Let's go ahead and in this, unfortunately you can't copy and paste rules at this time, but let's do a 2018. And this one, once again, we're just going to say when the year equals 2018. Let's change the background color in this case to something a little different, maybe something a little bit of a lighter orange here. I'm even going to go to my 2017. Let's lighten this up just a little bit as well, making it a little easier to read. Then, of course, 2019. Now, we are doing something a little bit manual in this case. Now, there are some other ways where you could do some groupings, but right out of the gate, just something that's, kind of quick and dirty in here. This is the easiest way to do it, or this is just a super easy way to do it. So let's do a green for our next color here, and let's kind of lighten that up a little bit as well. And then finally, one more 2020, and when the year equals not 1220 but 2020, we'll just update that background color. In this case, let's do something with a little bit more of like a purplish color. All right, there we go. Close. I'm going to go ahead and file. I'm going to save this. Another Control R to run the workflow. Our overall output does have a little bit more of some details, something a little bit more customized. So we have that data. We have the weeks on chart. Everything's been kind of updated a little bit for a little bit of a better format. All right, everyone. Once again, this is Chad with Data Prep U. I hope that you enjoyed our video and just kind of seeing our thought process and how we're kind of working through some of this stuff. Because this is a lot of fun. We do truly enjoy this. I'm changing my video around a little bit so you can see me a little better. But we do enjoy this. If you like what you see and you want to see something else or you want to see something different, let us know in the comments. Of course, any of those clicks for likes and subscribes, of course, always do help in just getting some more visibility. But also it helps others see us walk through this as well. It helps other people see exactly how we go through and approach a problem and talk through it. Once again, Chad with Data Prep U. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Monday. Hopefully you didn't, or the daylight savings didn't mess anyone up too much. We got to sleep in a little bit of an extra hour for those of you in a region that does recognize daylight savings. So thanks again so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We here at Data Prep U, really appreciate all of your help and support.